We're holding V'inyan Zeh She'er Mein Amor, right?
Yeah.
Ad Kedei Kach. So the Etzem Inab Er Mein Amor we already covered, yeah? It's a covered topic. Er Mein Amor means that since, just has over this point with Tzara, that the Makar is always higher than the Ashpa. The Ashpa is always the way the Inyan is, comes down in a lower realm. So the Inyan, the Makar, the idea itself, the way it's in the Makar, is always higher than the Ashpa. So the Ashpa, the Inyan, the way it's in the Ashpa is always mitzvah according to the tzir of the Mekabel, according to the tzir of Ashpa L'Poil. But Shekin, the Kud of Er is that the Er is not, there's an Er, the Inyan is not mitzvah according to the tzir of Ashpa, according to the tzir of Gilui. Gilui by definition means a certain Hagbala, a certain Tfisa, because the Inyan is in a Pshittis, so it's not shayach that it should be nirgash. It's not shayach that it can be begili. Begili means that it's expressed. It has some tfisa. The etzem is higher than tfisa. The Eibishter existence is not dependent on the word existence. It's not dependent on anything. It's not dependent on any word. So it's higher than expression. Expression has to be expressed in some form. So Gilui, so if the idea of Gilui was a regular ifin of Ashpa like Shefa, so the Inyan that the way you have the Inyan, the way it is in Gilui, is mitzumtzum according to the tzir of Gilui. Mash'inkin, now that you say that the whole musik of Ered is, it's the bleak vol of the etzem, since the etzem is not mugbal. So the etzem is not mugbal with the afchana ifin of etzem. It could be also nizgale. So now what's misgale? What's the davar misgale? The etzem kamesh who is misgale? So even though in the Gilui and Hergish, you have Avada, you can't capture the entire etzem, but you see from the vantage point of the etzem, what's being misgale? The whole etzem. So that's why you say Er Mein Amor. It's misbata in the fact that you have G'darim in Gilui that are not masim with the G'darim of Gilui. It's the Gilui is K'meya, is Ke'en Amor. You have certain pratim that if it was the idea, the way the idea is mitzumsum, according to the tzir of Gilui, it should have been in a certain way. But since, like Mashal, the Rebbe saying over here, the God of Musik of Ein Sof, Gilui mitzad atzma should be mugbal. Because Gilui, not everything that exists is nischadish. So Gilui should have been a davar mugbal. How could the Eibishter's be Ein Sof this pashtus? It could be everywhere. If it's a Gilui, so it's kamash yesh l'tchila yesh l'tichla. The etzem is higher than Gilui. But since you say that the Gilui is not, it's not a mitzvah outside of Elokus. It's the etzem being nisgala, it's the same he, which is higher than tfisa, which is higher than Gilui. But since he's not limited, he could also be nisgala v'nirgash. So the er is going to be blik vol, because the Gilui is kein etzem. That's Er Mein Amor. Er Mein Amor means that the Gilui, the Inyan, since the Inyan which is being nisgala, is the etzem k'mei shehu, so the Gilui is not going to be masim according to the G'darim of Gilui. The certain pratim and the Gebila are going to be massive according to the way the Yanam are be'etzim. That's Er Kein Amor. You see when you go Mashal the Rav Talmud, the Seichel, the way the Talmud understands it, is going to be Mugdar according to the Kolam of the Rav. Let's say the Rav is a Meich Dak, Edel Seichel, the Talmud is a Grab Seichel. So the Seichel of the Talmud is going to be a Grab Seichel. It's going to be the idea, the way it is in a more Mugushim Tekaifin. And the Edekite of the Indian you're not going to have. You're not going to have the Edekite of the Indian. Mashiach over here, even though Gilui l'chorim said the G'darim of Gilui should have been more mitzumtzim, should be more Baal Basha, but since Er Mein Amor, so the idea, the way it is beyond Gilui, is Meir. So the Gilui is Me'ein, is not according to the G'darim that Gilui are Mechayiv. Sin is clear, I had Davar Bar. Elam Tevis in you're not responding, why not stop?
It's based on.
Okay. It's part of life. Good. Let's see what the Rebbe says weiter. So what the Rebbe says weiter, it's important to know this. It says like this: Inyan zeh she'er mein amor, hu ad kedei kach, shemitzad zeh nasa al yodei yishavas abriya yesh ma'in. So in Bechlolus, before we go into the Prat, how do you understand the Pashtus? Now, before we go into that thing, the way the Rebbe explains it here is in the deeper way. I'm saying like Pashtus. You say that mitzad Gilui, mitzad the Bria, the Alter Rebbe in Tanya, just to understand the idea in general. The Alter Rebbe in Tanya is that the Bria didn't come kabiyach from the Atzmos, it came from the This Havas is the idea What does it mean this Havas is the idea Of course the Eibishter himself created the world, but where did the idea of creation stem from kabiyach? Or what's the Eibishter's kabiyach's Ein Sof is bizgalus, is begilui. As a result of the fact that it's begilui, so it also materializes itself and it becomes a Havas L'Poel. Since the Keach was bizgalus, so a person is, what is he going to do chesed? First is midas chesed is begilui. So the chesed, the way it is in the nefesh, so it's not going to bring a pulu chesed L'Poel. But shas the chesed is begilui, it's bizgalus, b'morgish, so then it kaviyachol demands expression. part of it, the extent of the expression is that it's going to be materialized. So let's say the Eibush is blig vol. Let's say the inyan of Eshavas Abriya was if you're blig vol, so it's going to materialize itself. They create an inyan of Yeshmai. Yeshmai is you have to be the only something which is not mugbal could create Yeshmai. So the Eibush is not blig vol good, but the Eshavas is inside the fact that the Eibush is blig vol is bezgalus. It's begilui. Because it's begili, so it results itself that this koyach is materialized the pearl. It's about the shafin of Yeshmai. It's not the blig vol. The weight is behelim. So why should it affect the creation of a world if the idea is in the helim state? The Eibush is a blig vol. If the Eibush is koyach, so if he wanted, he doesn't have to use a koyach blig vol to create a world. Doesn't have to use any energy to create a world. He can just say hu amar vayeh. But if that could be if never sabas that the Eibush is unrelated to the universe, he doesn't have to. The koyach doesn't have to have any attachment. But the Alter Rebbe says Tanas Nishtaz. The Savas idea that means that the Eibush's Keach Haviyachah was Bizgalus, and the result of the Gilui Gevar Nayin of Bria Shmaim. That's a Chiddush of the Alter Rebbe. Okay, this is if you learn Vayelech, that's a whole nice. But let's learn the way it is over here. So the way I understand the Pashas, what's the big? It's not a big Chiddush. I'm saying in order to create a world Yeshma'ayin, you have to have a Keach Bligvol, and the Eir is Bligvol, and since the Eir is Mein Amar, so the Eibush's Bligvol shines in Eir, and the result of the fact that it shines in Eir, it's Mahava, it affects Savas. Yeah, but the Alter Rebbe comes and says a whole different idea. He says like this. He says this takes up inyan says she'er mein amar who at kedei kach shemitzad zanasa yodis have to be yeshmai. The inyan of er mein amar lamayl is to the extent, it's such a great extent that mitzad the fact that the er is mein amar through the er vertus have a bri yeshmai. That means we'll see what he says. So the Rebbe is going to go into. Well, let's just before we get into this, just one point. When you speak about the regular idea of er mein amar. So, what does means? Has a certain explanation. So how does it's a marshal? It's not just meaning of kol yachol. So we're saying an example. The Rebbe says that there's two efani ashpa. There's one efan ashpa b'derech shefnes. Efan ashpa b'derech. Where's the efan ashpa of come from? You have a source that he has the tchunas, the milas kav yachol of Amar. Amar means that since he's not mugbal, so his inyan doesn't have to stay dafke behelim. He can also be begili. So where does the musik of gili come from? Where does the musik of come from? It comes from a certain shleimus that a makar has. Why does a shemesh have the tchun of that it can be mispashed in ifin of because the shemesh is a mar. He doesn't have his inyanim only in a ifin mugbal. He has his inyanim in a ifin which is not mugbal. So he's also begili. He's also meir. He's also nirgash. That's our main amar. But this means a dogma. Let's say you have. So okay, but the Rebbe, let's see how the Rebbe says it here. I just want to bring in a general point. When you say Ermi and Amar, is not just it's not just a concept. But if you have an etzem, you say David should be said etzem. Could you say that in Vas Bashtei to believe vol of Alakus? Today we know that one of the expressions of blig vol, saying the mashal, one of the expressions of a makar which is not mugbal, that he could be mispashit. What could be mispashit and misgale and ifin of er? Only a makar which is not mugbal, because a makar which is mugbal, in order to get to the other place, you have to switch yourself to the other place. Yeah, like we spoke last week. So a makar which is not mugbal could be mispashtas. But is the Eibishter Amar? Is the Etzem of Alakus? In Yana is the fact that he's a blig vol, and the blig vol in the sense that he's able to be mispashit. In them Bashtei das was Eibishter's blig vol. Would anybody say that? Understand what I'm saying? The Eibishter is beyond any idea, so he's beyond saying that it was Bashtei his Meile, that he's not mugba, and therefore he could be mispashit. He's beyond the definition. So when you have the musik of what does reveal? What do you have in Er reveals that his makir is not mukbal in the sense that can be mispashit. But other aspects of the makir, that's not misgal in You understand what I'm saying? The shemesh, let's say, says shira to the Eibishter. Is the megala that does? Why is the not megala that? Because that in has nothing to do with the fact that it's a mar. The shemesh, where does the come from? Because the shemesh is a mar. That means that it has within the inyan of behirus, it has this quality that it has behirus in an unlimited way. So maybe that's mispashit. So there's a inyan of mar. There's a etzem which she has the mile of mar. Atzvus has the mile of mar, but that's not. But Atzvus is not limited to have that his bas bashtet ain't sov that he's a mar. The Eibishter is beyond any definition, any term, any idea. The idea of mar is also neschadish. The idea of mar is also a certain term. The Eibishter is beyond that. That aspect of a lakus which is beyond the idea of mar, that doesn't express. What does er come from? Er is that the mar is mispashit. See, we come to the mar is mispashit without being mitzam himself. So I see that the mar is not mugbal. Not Mugbal one says that he has the tchuna that he can be mispashet. But the fact that the mar is blig vol has nothing to do with the fact that he's a mispashet. There's a deeper element of blig vol which is not expressed in the idea of mispashtus. That doesn't reveal to us.
What's the hechrich to say that even the deepest blig vol, based on logic we explained earlier, you're so blig vol, you're not limited.
I understand, but comes so but the deepest blig vol. But what is expressed? That the makar is mispashet. But the fact that the makar has nothing to do with the nakuda of mispashtus. Where does come from? In the mashal, where does come from? From which aspect of the source does come from?
You could argue, you could split the mocker and say there's idea in the mocker that he's a moir, and there's a deep idea in the mocker that his idea is not trying to. But at the same time, you could say that what if the whole avodah was that he has the ability, him in his essence, he has that ability not to stay behelen. So you're talking about the deep.
Yeah, but the way he's not connected to any. That's an idea. The Eibusher is not connected to any ideas. He has to be. The idea that because that a davar bilti mugbal expresses itself in gilui, that's an idea. That's an idea. That's an expression of blig vol. That's a certain idea. That's a certain understanding. That's a certain nature of being. The Eibusher is not is beyond that. He's beyond that idea also.
But the havana behind it.
The havana behind it is an idea of mar. The atzmos is beyond any idea.
So what it's reflecting is it's only going to reflect its mocker.
It's the idea of mar, which is the idea of mar. Comes as an expression of a mar. Since the etzim's blig vol, and it's a blig vol, which mitzad that inyan. There's a spashtos. What do I see when I see it? I see that the Eibush is a mispashet. Where does it come from? Because it's blig vol. The blig vol, which brings his pashtos. The fact that the Eibush is legapi him, the whole idea of his pashtos never began. The whole idea of Eir Mar doesn't exist. Everything he created. So he's beyond anything. What is he himself? You have no idea what he himself is. That idea is expressed in Eir. Eir expresses a certain blig vol, which is misgalan, that it could have Eir, not the etzim itself.
That's the truth.
No, so Chassidus says in the mashal it is that way. In the mashal, Eir is only megale in Yanim, is only megale the mar. It's only megale the fact that the makar is a mispashet. The aspects of the makar will have nothing to do with his pashtus. That Eir is taken a megale in the mashal. In the mashal they have different two mashal Chassidus for Eir. It's Chayes HaNefesh and Eir HaShemesh. Eir HaShemesh doesn't tell us, doesn't reveal everything that exists in the Shemesh. The Shemesh is not Bezgalos. There's a certain aspect in the Shemesh where there it has the tchuna of blig vol, which is misbat in the tchuna of Esbashtas. The Shemesh says shira to Rebishter. That's not misbat in or Chassidus brings an example. Chassidus wants to say this point. Chassidus brings an example that he brings us in some avav in Kiyimcha. That I'm just saying this as Ardom to understand. We're just at least one prat what the Rebbe is saying here. But he says that you have certain avanim tevis. Avanim tevis that they shine also. They have the tchuna of hispashtos. They shine. They create light around them. But nicht in them steht sehr mohos. Their shenkheit is that they have their beauty to them. Derech agav they also have the mind of hispashtos. But and if someone needs a candle, he's not going to go use a diamond, which happens to be that it also sends a brightness around. He's going to buy a candle. It's much cheaper. A diamond is ikar yeker. So al derech zeh, the fact that the Eibusher, that's a kilo derech agav that the Eibusher has the tchuna of moir. That he has the fact that the Eibusher contains the blig vol, which expresses itself that he can be mispashet. That's kavayachol nicht in dem besteht was etzem is. It's beyond any idea. Beyond any idea. So the true Ein Sof of what Atzmos is Ein Sof is not expressed in the fact that he be a mispashet. That's the way we understand kavayachol the musik of Ein Sof. Blig vol results in the fact that he be mispashet. And that's the only thing that Eir is megala, because Eir is never from the fact that mitzad the etzem there's gilui. Eir means gilui. Eir means gilui. From man stammt Eir, how could the more be gilui? The makar elukus be gilui? Because it's not mukbal, so elukus is gilui also. So what is gilui megala? The fact that the makar can be a mispashet is blig vol. The sense merely can be misgala. Other elements of the makar is not misgala in Eir. Eir is a specific inyan. Eir is gilui. Eir is not just anything.
If this is almost like a nivra, then the whole reason it was able to be mispashet was because it's a Kaplen. That's why it only is a true blig vol because it's a true Kaplen. If it's a true Kaplen, that means it's not.
So the MS is that these things are connected. We're not. These things are connected. Maskana Chassidus is not like that. Maskana of Chassidus is Kaplen does not necessarily bring out this point. We're kind of saying something else. The air is a Kaplen. That's a different story. In a certain sense, the air is a Kaplen. But still, it wouldn't bring that the air would be Megala, the Nakud of whatever we're speaking about here in the Tchila. It's two separate in Yom. Because the fact that air is a Kaplen is, you say, Atzmos is mushla from anything, right? Shlilas kol haTorah. But the Eibusher is also a Mayer. Atzmos is a Mayer too. There's a certain quality in a source that it can be a Mayer. We find Lamata in this Chassidus brings the Lashon Samat Tzedek, that Hanet Eizim Al Yishma, so all the qualities that we find here, the Eibusher contains them. The Eibusher is Shlilas kol haTorah. It doesn't mean that he doesn't have. He has everything. He has much more. I'm not going into the pratim, but I just want to bring at this point. The Eibusher is a Mayer. I don't want to go off topic because we want to learn what's written over here. But the Eibusher is a Mayer. If he's a Mayer, then the whole idea, then he doesn't have to be Mechadish to Musik Aver. If Atzmos is a Mayer, so he doesn't have to be Mechadish. Because the Musik of Mayer is that because he's being full, he's not limited to being an Eifan of Etzim. He can be also Begilim. But that's all, but what's the Gilim? But that's all the aspect of Mayer which exists in him, Kaviyachol. Atzmos has the fact that Atzmos is a Mayer. And it's not the fact that he's a Mayer, the Eir is Kodom. But the Eir is only Megala what Eir is. The aspects of Atzmos which has nothing to do with Eir. That's not Nizgala in Eir. It's a topic.
If it's a Kaplen, that means it was. If it's a Nivra, then it's not a Kaplen. Meaning, it has to be a part of Etzem. This more has to be a part of Etzem. It can't be out there.
Yeah, but it's a result of the fact that the Etzem is also a Mayer.
There's no chasar in it. Meaning, the moment it's a Baal Maila, just like if you're going to say there's something deeper in Etzem, and from that deeper perspective, this thing is like.
Say that, but the Eibush just Kedel everything. So what? The Eibush is on one hand beyond it. Doesn't mean that he doesn't have it either. The Eibush is not limited, so you can't say this because he has an aspect that's beyond it. Kaviyachol, so he doesn't have that mile. He has everything. Shlilas kol haTorah. If we see that he created in the world a mucker with the tchuna of being a moir, that means that he also has the mile of being a mucker in that way. I'm not saying that he's limited to have only that. But the Eibusher also has the mile of Makir, of Moir. But I'm not. But Moir is Moir. Let's see the way it's written here because we're going to get into side in Yanim. It's not going to. But let's see the way the Rebbe says here because we're not learning some Avav, right? So let's try to see the Inyan the way it is over here. Nishvat is a Fakrichin. The Inyan zeh she'er mein Amar ad kadei kach shemitzad zeh nasa yed Shabbos b'Yishmayim. So first there means that what's that flow of creating Yishmayim? So what's the Alter Rebbe dort? The Alter Rebbe says Rabbi Yishmayin im Akelim di Tzfiris shebehen melubash hakav. Sao is Yishmayin is wird Nisave from Kelim, which in the Kelim is melubash the kav, which is the kav is a hemshech there in Sof. She'eru kein amar, and the Alter Rebbe liegt zu. What's the pshat? What's pshat mein amar? Umuhusi v'atzmusay shel ha'matzel baruch hu. שמציוסי הוא מעצמוסי, ואיני אולו מזעילה שקודם לחס ושלום. ולכן הוא לבד בכיכה ויכולתי ליברי יש מעין באבס המוחלט ממש, בלי שום אילה וסיבה אחרת כדם הסדש הזה. Where's the Alter Rebbe saying Tanya? The Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, in order to create yesh ma'ayin, what type of koyach do you need to create yesh ma'ayin? That's the double part of the Eibusher is any olu me'izila v'siba shekodmole. The Eibusher is not a result. It's not dependent on any idea. So it says mitzuyusi matzmusi. The Eibusher's being stems from him himself. It's not the result of any idea which came before him. There is no ideas. So you can't limit the Eibusher to any olu me'izila. He's the beginning. He's the beginning of everything. He's the source of his own. He's the kaviyachol mitzuyusi matzmusi. His Metzias comes from his etzim. There's nothing that. So the Alter Rebbe says, according you just want to bring out this point, you say, what's for a keich brings chares yisavas b'rei Yishmayim? There was a world created b'rei Yishmayim. What type of power is needed to create Yishmayim? About the Eibusher is always Metzias Metzma. You say a mashal. You say that you have a melech gives out an order, a pkuda. So. If the melech gives an order, that's an order that makes sense. It's a pkuda that's a pkuda mistaber. So it makes sense. It makes an order that you're not allowed. It has to be a speed limits. It's an order to obey the melech. you have to come onto the fact that he has the authority of a king, or he's saying a davar mistaber. To them that he's a king, and whatever the king says, I have to listen to him. I have to obey his commands. He says something which makes sense. You don't need Kabbalah for that. You don't need in that order. You don't need the authority of the king in order to. You have certain orders which don't make sense at all. The only takeif that the Am is going to listen to is only because it's an order of the king, and if the king orders, there's no questions asked. So the Eibush created the world. It's not a question. The question is what type of qualities are needed, or what type of qualities are used in order to be Mahaba Bri Yeshmayim. Pashas once create a world Yeshmayim, you need to have a summer which is Bekeicha the Chadish. You have to be able to create a new thing, the Chadish Yeshmayim. That's not necessarily Keicha. The Torah says the Torah brings out or you have to be something which is not Mugbal. A bleak vol, something which has no definition, could create a yesh me'ayin. Something which is limited could only create something which is massive with istzir. Only contains within itself what it has, not what it doesn't have. So you can only create something which is massive to your form. So that's not going to be a yesh me'ayin. That's going to be something which suits you. So to create a yesh, you have to be a bleak vol. You have to have no definition at all. So you create yesh me'ayin. Good. Although if the whole Bri Yesh Me'ayin only demanded an Ein Sof, or something which is an undefined Kaviyachal, an unlimited being, someone was in Zamayda by stating the fact that he's undefined and therefore create a new thing, so then, is Blik Vol. We just said before, is Blik Vol. Is Blik Vol. The Eibush has Blik Vol. Since he's Blik Vol, he has no definition, therefore he can be Mizgala, and therefore create Yeshma'ayin. That we can understand. But Al Rebbe says in Tanya that in order to create Yeshma'ayin, that from Ankman to the Keich of Muhusi Vatzmusay, a different Keich. Al Rebbe says, who can create a yesh, which is na'ifin of yesh me'ayin v'efes hamuchat mamish. The yesh has no reason that came before it. What's the Al Rebbe's lashon? You see the Al Rebbe's lashon? It says, who could create yesh me'ayin? Only someone that's muhusi v'atzmusay shemetziusay hu me'atzmusay, which is eini olol ne'ezi ili v'shkat v'lechas v'shalom. V'lechein hu levadi v'chot to do what? Livra yesh, to create a being, a something. Me'ayin ve'efes hamuchat mamish, from the ultimate absolute nothingness. Beli shum ila v'siba acheres, without any reason, without any makir, without any siba or ila, without any circumstance. Kedemes liyesh hazeh. Is it true? The world has no ila v'siba. What does Al Rebbe say here? Hu levad b'keich v'chotin livrei, to create. What did he create? A something from ultimate nothing, literal nothingness. Without any source. The yesh has a makir. There's dvar avai, which is mahav the nivra. I'm saying, what's the Eibush said yirakia? So that's the ilah v'siba shekot mal yesh hazeh. Avad, the yesh on its own right had no source before. The Eibush created yesh ma'ayin. But what do you need? Why do you need keich atzmos for this? Why do you need only some which has the trait of that is being is not dependent on a siba? He could create a being which is undependent on a siba. That's what I'm saying. Only some which is reality is fully independent. He's not dependent on any source or any reason. He could create something which is also fully independent. Is the Nivra fully independent? The Nivra is created by the Varavaya. So what's main point though? Al Rebbe says that the Nivra itself had no potential to be here before. The Nivra from the Nivra's point of view had zero potential to be here. It's not like you say the mashal of Gilei Helim. You had something that had the potential to be here. It had the. Chassidus always use the dogma of the matches kesef. It says the same dogma. If someone takes a block of gold and you make a kli out of it, you make a becher out of it. You say that becher also didn't exist before, so it's yesh ma'ayin. So why did Al Rebbe say that there's not yesh ma'ayin? Because the potential. Avada, the tzura of the becher didn't exist in that tangible form of a becher, but you had the efsharis for it. You had the potential for it. When you speak about the nivra, there was no potential for the nivra. There was zero, but before it, not only the shamayim didn't exist. There was nothing. There was no potential for it. Good, all's good and fine, but that's not what Al Rebbe is saying here. So in order to create something from nothing, you need something which is not mugbal. Anything which is mugbal could only create something that has a potential. But this is a bezunder lamdas. Yeah, you need a kayak built in mugbal. Al Rebbe is saying something else. Who could create a fully independent being? Only someone which is fully independent. The nivra is an independent being. That's the shayla. So here's the Rebbe starts being masber over here. But what do we have for the Alter Rebbe? The Alter Rebbe, we have a merit gechidush from the Alter Rebbe. First of all, the Alter Rebbe explains that the nivra is considered for some reason an independent being. That's what the Alter Rebbe is calling the yesh. The yesh is an independent being. And in order to create this independent being, we needed only the Eibusher, which is the only independent thing. And that's Atzmos himself, because all other Giluyim, all Inyanim, are all Nimshach from Atzmos. What's the only thing which is fully independent, which doesn't have to, which he's the source? That's only Atzmos. Every other idea, Bligvol, every other idea is an Alu. It's not any idea, nothing had to exist. No idea had to exist. Any musik, the same way any musik was created. So what wasn't created? What's fully independent? Everything is an odol of the Eibush. The Eibush is an etzem, so he's blikvol, and if he wants, he has all the milas. But they don't have to exist. The Eibush they don't have to be. He's the only thing which exists. He's fully independent. That's the Atzmos is fully independent. And in order to create in the fact that this. And who's the one that's able to create this nivra, which is fully independent? Only the one that's independent. So the Alter Rebbe is saying that in order to create a yesh ma'ayin, which inyan do you need to create a yesh ma'ayin? The koyach of atzmos. What's the atzmos? And what the Rebbe wants to bring out here is that the Alter Rebbe says that this koyach also exists in because the Alter Rebbe says that this house is idea and since mein amor, and the mar is musev atzmos, so therefore, just every time there's someone the Rebbe wants to bring out a zaytik point. The Rebbe wants to bring out the Eretz Ad Kedei Kach Mein Amar that also expresses the atzmos of which has nothing to do with the idea of mar. The idea of the mar is the comes from the idea that the etzem is blig vol in the sense and mitzad the etzem there's a spashtus. That's where comes from. Is gilui. Where does the idea of gilui come from? Because you have an etzem, and the etzem l'chore is beyond gilui. But because it's big vol, it has gilui. But that's all ideas. Gilui is an idea. Etzem, the fact that etzem is lushas from gilui is an idea. The fact that the etzem is big vol, it can be expressed in gilui is an idea. All these things are ideas. So it expresses the fact that the Eibusher is amar. The fact that the Eibusher is independent, the tchuna of Elokus being the l'chor has nothing to do with The Alter Rebbe thinks since mein amar, so the mein amar l'mas ad kedei kach, that is megala also, that in the also exists this nikud of which has nothing to do with which has nothing to do with gilui. We're going to see, but I just want to bring up that this parsha is a parsha of Fiatzma. This is a very sadistic shtickle. This shtickle. Where does it say the lashon? The Alter doesn't make a big tzimis out of it. It says, "Ukdei sheyi yesh hazeh nivra v'keich ein sof neslabish ein sof b'kelim." The Alter Rebbe says that this havas is idea. She'er kein amar. The Alter says basically that this havas is idea. And so what's the beer that we have there? Because is ein amar hu muhusiv atzmos. So let's see how the Rebbe's masbir. So the Rebbe wants to bring out over here the extent of the fact that there is mein amar. But the Chagav, the Rebbe goes into what does it mean, Bechlal? That since only the Eibusher is independent, the Niver is a very dependent being. He's telling the Dvar he has either b'sim shekot malay. What's the pshat that the Alter Rebbe says that this? The Alter Rebbe makes it a very mamish. Only he could create the yesh ma'av as mamish b'lishim either b'siba cheres kadem says the yesh is no siba. What's the pshat in there? What are you going to say? We don't sense that we have a siba. But that means that But the Alter Rebbe is a very stark lashon. The Alter Rebbe says that he created a yesh which has no ilav asiba. See the Alter Rebbe's lashon. Means what type of thing did the Eibush create? Something without a siba. That's what we're going to have to see. The fact that we're not margish the makar is not stam as a helen. We're not margish the makar. We're not margish because the Eibush created a being which has nothing to do with the source. Created us in a void. We're here. We exist. We're not a yesh is the nivra of Elam Haza is not a bria which comes from a source. As if it has no makar. It's here. It's not behemshech to anything. That's the truth. It's not The Eibusher created a Zam Sart Yesh, which Ki'ilu came out of nowhere. It exists. Not an extension to a source. That's Yesh Ma'ayin. It's not Stam. We think Avada we have a Makar. I'm saying we're not the Eibusher. Of course, the Nivra has a Makar. But what type of being was created here? He created a type of being which is an independent being. We're not really independent, but what type of reality was created? A type of reality that's independent. Who could create such a reality which is independent? Only the one that contains this reality. Only the Eibusher, which contains this inner independence, could create the reality which is an independent reality. So Avada, you say, do you have a Makar? Avada, you have a Makar. But what type of reality was created? And the Alter Rebbe says that Yesh Ma'ayin Belishon Ila B'Siba Acheres Kadam Eseshes. The Rebbe says later, we made the Gevart over here. The Ayin's Mahavad the Yesh in a way that the Ayin cannot be felt in the Yesh. Now it's on a different world. In the world of the Yesh, there's no Makar. So just Dugma, just to bring out this point, that I'm saying. It's not standard. There's a Helen. You say that brings us Dugma. That the Yerushalmi says that you know the Kel Gemer that the Eibusher helps out the Batidinim, the Psak. When there's a Psak Halachas, so like Kel Gemer, the Eibusher is finishes off so what's the Dugma that's brought in Yerushalmi? That the Bezdin the Ma'abrim Sasham, that some Meidela has her birthday the Gimel Adar Sheni. And in the Alta Zeiten, you didn't have to officially, you don't have to be Mahaber Sachedesh right away at the beginning of, you don't have to know the beginning of the year. They used to decide later in the year whether to be Mahaber or not. So let's say in the middle of Adar, they decided to be Mahaber Sashana. So the beginning of Adar was Adar Stam. It's Gimel Adar. She had her birthday, she turned 3 years old. Al Pitayra, when someone turns 3 years old, her Teva changes. And Im Sulah Chayzr. She has a Bia, it's considered a Bia, and he's going to get Misa. Let's say she was 3 years old and she was a sister, let's say, he's going to get Misa. Because it's a real Bia. Because then Bezin decided that we're going to make it Ibayar. They make it, her birthday is Gimel Sheni. Come to Chayz and she's 2 years old. He's not going to get Misa. Because the Bia wasn't a Bia. So Chayz, that's the Bezin Ma'aber Sashana, so Chayz. So the Shaila is in order for it to affect a change, a physical change in a person's body. Physical things affect the physical body. They always give the dogma that you can have a doctor sitting in a room and there's going to be a sama mavas on the table. And the doctor is going to say that according to medicine, according to this bottle of sama mavas is not allowed to be on the table. It has to go away. It's not allowed to be here. The bottle's not going to leave. Because what does seich have to do with a physical body? This thing is ugefrekt for it to be here. Good, this is a physical reality. Physical reality is not affected by seich. It's a different world. It's a different world. This is affected by, you take a stick and you move it, it's going to move. The fact that I'll be seichel, theoretically speaking, it's not good, seichel. Yeah, a few rabbis paskin that I'll be chachmes ha-teira, chedesh adar has to change. B'meila p'sulei ha-chezr. So the shaila is there something in the world of the guf that was mashana the guf? Is there something in her world that made her change? There's nothing in her reality that brought it into being. So Alter Rebbe Yesh Ma'ayin, the Dvar Havaya, the Eibusher said here Rakia. The Dvar Havaya is Ein Sof, is Pshittis. In the world of Pshittis, what does it do with the Rakia in Elam Hazar becoming? What is it? In the world of the Yesh, there's no market. In the world of the Yesh, there's no source. Avada, the Eibusher said here Rakia. But in the world, the Makar is not Nirgash at all in the Yesh. It's this Appel de Gezach. I'm just trying to bring out that you say there's different plaim in them, but one of the plaim you say also say this dugma a lot. If Shimshon Gibber is a meritic Gibber, you could break beams and walls, all good Zach. But Shimshon Gibber is standing next to a stone, a tiny little stone, and he's holding it in his hand. If the stone is not going to fly, it's not a cholshan his gvura. In order for the stone to fly, his gvura has to be nimshach to the stone. If his gvura is in his hand, why should the stone fly? If you want the rakia, in order for the rakia to be affected by a lukus, the Eibusher has a kayach to create. The Eibusher has the gvul, but it has to be. But the nivra has to feel it. Here, it's the gevarna yesh, the gevarna velt, from the because the Eibusher said yirakia, but the Eibusher saying yirakia, the nivra is not margish. The Eibusher is dibur yirakia. So the yesh gevar ma'ayin taken. Sigavarna kaviyachol the yesh. This is not the Rebbe saying more than that. But the fact, what I'm trying to say is the fact that the yesh senses doesn't sense a source. It's independent because what the Eifan is is not Eifan that an independent being was created, a being which doesn't come an extension to a source. Of course, literally speaking, it has a source. The Eibishter wanted it to be here. The Eibishter wouldn't have wanted it and it wouldn't have been it. But what type of being was created? An independent type of being. That's what I'm trying to say. That's what Rebbe says.
But it's only Hashasim because it really has to be with Havachalaik back.
There is a marker about him saying.
No, they every second.
But what does it mean Margashasi? Why does he feel that? Because that's what type of thing was created. What type of thing was made? A type of thing.
Hashem doesn't have to create every second.
He doesn't create every second.
Why?
Because yesh ma'ayin, because it's something which doesn't make sense. Because the chiddush gomer.
Every second.
Not creating it means that it should be on its own right. On its own right, we don't exist altogether. We're not for sure. We're not independent. The fact that we're independent, that's a chiddush nifla from the Eibishter. I'm saying, what's the question?
Why is it a chiddush nifla? The Eibishter could do such a thing.
But that's a chiddush. That's the Eibishter could do it. That's chiddush means that the only reason why this thing could exist is because the one that's making it is able to do it, not because this thing makes sense. In order for it not to be dependent on the kayach, it means that this thing makes sense. You understand what I just said?
I did. But
This is a very basic point. What's the Alter Rebbe's whole raya? What's the Alter Rebbe's whole word?
it's Pelagon.
What's Peta Pelagod? If water can't stand,
It never existed.
not that it
It's
never
not allowed
exists.
to exist.
Without the kayach doing it from its own tchunis, this idea it can't be. So water standing or a stone flying in the air. A stone in the air, a stone from its own point of view can't fly in the air. If there's kayach, it's a whole different story. So the nivra should be independent without the Eibishter making it independent. That's not shaykh. The nivra is, I'm saying, the nivra would be an ayin ve'efes without the Eibishter. But avada, the fact that the nivra is an independent being, that's avada telling the Rabbi.
You said that Hashem created in a way that's independent.
What? Not in a way that's truly independent. What type of being did he make? He made a being which is not an extension of his, which is not an extension of him. That's what type of being was made. He made a type of being which has nothing to do with the Mahavid, the Makir. So it's like has no trace back to the Makir. It has a source. I mean, it's not Atzmos, but it has the same nature of being as Atzmos. As the Alter Rebbe says, the same Atzmos is something without a source. The nivra was for azach is das azach on Makir.
But this idea has to be created every second.
Create every second is not a weakness. Create every second means you have to understand what the mistake of creating every second means. Let's take the regular example of physics, just to bring out this point. Someone's throwing a stone in the air. You say, why does the kayach have to be there every second? Because the stone, from its own point of view, is on the floor. The only reason why it's flying is because the kayach. So I'm asking you a question. Why does the nivra sense that it's an independent thing? That makes sense. I'm saying, is a table independent? That's the question. Is a table something which is independent? A table, from the table's point of view, a table is a created. So how can you feel otherwise? Because the Eibishter can make a pella. It's not misyachas to the nivra. That's the pshat. That's we call it. The minute the Eibishter decides that I'm not going to make this pella anymore, so then the world is according to the way that inside the world, not the way not the Eibishter's plan. Inside the gather of Velt, it's ayin ve'efes.
Yeah, because in the stone, the table of the stone is not to fly.
So,
But maybe should create a new table. Something didn't exist
das ist ein bisschen der Scheil, wenn ich create a new table. The point in the Indian of Yesh Ma'ayim, create a new table, the Eibishter created, the nivra is independent.
There's no nature. Maybe there is no nature.
First of all, the Shad that you're asking now, if it's a Shad on Tan Shech Lamuna, that's Shad, that's Astan Atomim.
It's what?
It's Astan Atomim, this question that you're asking now. You're aware of this? Good. But what Alter Rebbe is saying here, this Mishnah gave Alter Rebbe, the fact that the nivra feels independent, that's for sure this is a Teva Kodem. I'm saying anything besides the Eibishter is a dependent being. Of course it's a Teva Kodem. Yet that's how I take a cheshbon. Let's see how the Rebbe says it here. The Rebbe says like this. Dehine, Brias nivra kazeh. The Rebbe is touching up. I mean, the Alter Rebbe said it. The Rebbe is touching up. The Alter Rebbe, in the Lashon, the Alter Rebbe uses it is as if the nivra has no either v'siba. It's not the Rebbe's Lashon. It's a very sharp Lashon. Only one that has no either v'siba could create b'cholti livrei yesh me'ayim be'evas olet mamish b'lisham either v'siba acheres kedem es. It's a very strong Lashon. How does Alter Rebbe define the yesh? It's a yesh me'ayim be'evas hamuchlet mamish Beli shum ili v'siba acheres kedem es yesh. Without any ili v'siba that comes before this yesh. So I said, within the world of the yesh, there's no makir. There's no makir. Is there a makir? There's no makir. There's something beyond the idea of a makir. We don't understand how it came into existence. But is there a ili v'siba? Is there a makir which brought us into being? There's no makir. The Eibush said Yirakia, that's not a makir. A makir means that there is something which activated this. There's nothing that in the realm of the nivra activated the nivra to be. Kavarai, the nivra doesn't feel that as a makir. So in the world of the nivra, there's no makir.
Could you ask, does a stone feel the kaya?
Of course it does. The stone feels pressure. Nothing is affected by something which doesn't exist in this world. There's nothing that we know of that something is affected by an Indian which doesn't exist by Ilam. If it doesn't exist, then it's not going to be affected by it. The only thing, yesh, the nivra, Ilam Hazar, is affected by a makar which does not exist within the world of the makar, of the nivra. That's a pelagod. The Alter Rebbe says a fact. The nivra has no makar. What does it has no makar? With the definition of makar, it doesn't have. An ila v'siba kidames le'esh hazeh doesn't have. It means the Eibush created it, but he created it without a makar, without a ila, without a siba. Something was created without a siba.
That makes sense.
Why doesn't it make sense?
Because it's a contradiction. You said he created it, without.
But it's not with what is because what is ila v'siba means that this thing has some extension with that thing, has some relation. If it has zero relation at all,
A siba doesn't mean relation.
siba means that this is the cause for it.
Yeah.
But there's no cause for the effect. There's nothing that has the term of cause, the form of cause. It doesn't have the form of cause. There's no relation b'chlal to the yesh. So in the world of the yesh, there is no makar klal b'klal.
So a technical thing is Hashem created the world. He's the siba part, no?
Siba doesn't mean that the way we call siba. I'm saying that siba means that there's something that has the effect of being a reason for that.
Has no technical connection. I could push the chair. I have no technical.
So that your pressure is felt in the chair. So there's a cause for the push. There's no cause why they never came into being. There's no cause for it.
So siba means it's like connected to it.
Friday, I'm saying if you're going to say now that according to your opinion, these Fabringen papers should not be on the table. Let's say they would leave. They would go off the table. You would say that yesh ila v'siba, there's a siba, why they left? There's no
What
siba.
happened?
Let's say you said that according to your opinion, this table should be empty. And the table would empty out. Would beer be an ila v'siba for the fact that this table emptied out?
That's not a siba.
It's not a siba, that's what the Alter Rebbe saying.
But
The yesh has no siba.
It didn't happen.
Let's say it would happen. You can't there's no source for it. So the Eibush created a yesh without a source. It's not that there's a source for why not. Usually, there's a reason. That's not a reason for this. This doesn't bring that. This is not a cause. It's not a cause and effect means that this is the cause of that. The Eibush saying here the Kia is not. It doesn't affect Elam Hazar being created. The same way Shimshon HaGibber having Gvura in his hand is not going to cause an Evan to fly. So what? So you have a keach in your hand, therefore everything's going to start flying here. What does that have to do? So the Eibush said here the Kia. The Eibush says Atz in Elokus. It says here the Kia. So the Faber Dverna Yesh. In the realm of Gashmis, there's no makar. So how did the Gashmis come to be? Without a makar. It's because the Eibush created something which is fully independent. The Alter Rebbe is saying a very stark result. The Alter Rebbe is saying that what nature of being was created. The Alter Rebbe doesn't say it. The Alter Rebbe says much sharper. The Alter Rebbe says, who could create a yesh, which has no makar? Only someone does. The Alter Rebbe says it, but it doesn't. The Alter Rebbe doesn't have to explain. I'm saying, of course, we know that the world is created. No one's going to be convinced that the world wasn't created. The Alter Rebbe is saying, but who? The Alter Rebbe the Eibush created the yesh, which has no potential. Zero potential. No cause. So what is it? There's nowhere to trace it back to. The Eibush creates something which doesn't have to, which he can create something which doesn't have any trace, which doesn't trace back anywhere. Because he himself has that nature of reality. There's different biyurim, but there's different biyurim why you need keich asmas for this idea. This idea that the nivra is not to the regular extension of a makar. Any form of makar v'tetzah, the yesh doesn't comply with those gdalim. Any type of musig, of makar and tetzah, siba and mesubiv, the yesh doesn't comply to that. Because the yesh and the ayin are different worlds. Are worlds apart. So it's called, it was for Azach B'Shavim Gavar, it was a Bria without a Ila V'Siba. But there's different Biyurim why you need Kechatzim, I'm saying, there's different Havanas in this. But here that, let me say the Rabbi touches like that. What time is it? It was Nizgar. Good, okay.
7:56.
Huh?
On the time?
Good. No, good, okay. Why does the time move so fast? Zeit geht sehr schnell. Okay. Let's so the Hini Bries, can you because let's leave that. Hini Bries, Nibra Kaze. Yurga Shesla Shesh, the Visi Bishakot Mulla. The Rebbe only says it as a Nibra which is Herzig, is Yurga Shesla. His basic Hergish should be Nibra Kaze, Yurga Shesh, the Visi Bishakot Mulla. Chidali is Rakim China Kazu, Shein Li the Visi Bishakot Mulla. How did Rebbe say it? Brias Nivra Kaze, Azam is cert Nivra. The Rebbe is saying, it's not Stam. The Rebbe created Azaz cert Nivra, which is natural instinct feeling. He doesn't feel that he has Ilu V'Siva. To create such a creature, that his natural feeling shouldn't be that he has a marker. That only someone which has no marker creates such a being. If the mucker came from what's Ur has a source. It's an extension of something. If I care, the whole musik of Ur is that since the mucker is not mukbal, but melee he has me also. Ur is the ultimate yesh le'ila v'siba. Ur is gilui is a hemshich to the fact that the etzem is a mucker. He has ila v'siba. See, where did the gilui come from? Because the Eibusher is a mucker. Because there's a mucker. That's the whole mitzvah Ur. So if the nivra would come as a result of let's say let's be mitzvah like this. Salach telikus, salach that the Eibusher is bligful. The bal salach vertavel. As an extension of the fact that that's meir the bligful of elikus, what gavar navel. So the same way the is as elikus is begili. There's a mucker. It's not stam. There's there's gili. There's a mucker that's begili. So also the bria would be as hamasal bria, which is basic feeling with bria. Because the Eibusher is bligful, you can create a world. The same way the gili gufa. It's some mitzvahs of gili. Since the Eibusher is Ein Sof, therefore there could be Gilui. And therefore there could be a Welt. It would be an extension. The same way the whole Eretz Mitzvah is an extension. It's Ila is a Rim Chli Shesh L'Ila V'Siva. I say, hey, never gam genad there is it. She nigger shas like Thomas Shesh L'Ila V'Siva. Kivan Shereim Ban Ivraim Shalamata. Shalin Nirgash Eslam Shesh L'Ila V'Siva Shekatim Lahemu Men Nivro. The Hergish HaNivra. That means the basic feeling of the Nivra. Yeah, the Nivra is not Margish that he has a mucker. Yeah, that was bringing out over here. It's not a psazaitik as that. The fact that a nivra doesn't sense that he's an extension of something, that he came from somewhere, that he's a result of something, is not a psak shama. Psak shama. And if you want, you could. The Rebbe says a person could havana vasaga. You could try to undo all the helamas v'esteirim. This is the basic condition of the nivra. The basic, the etzem of the basic hergish, natural hergish of the nivra is that he's a something for himself. It's not a something which comes in as an extension. You can understand today to tomorrow different things. V'avana b'asagi you can understand that he has a makir, but his natural hergish is never going to change. His basic hergish, his basic hergish. Yes, I'm feeling Rosh Hashanah with house havana. Takos havana b'asagi. They have a chreichim sichlim sheshila v'sivishkat mulam man nivro. But what do they feel? What's their heritage? What do they feel that it was like this? They feel that the nivras are in Shanivru Mitzias Yesh. That means within the world of the nivra, the market doesn't exist. You can have rayas from today to tomorrow that you have a source. But is the source nirgash with them? The source in a different world. V'hana shabar gashasim in lam ila v'siba shekatmu lem. Akor tzarich lemer. So mele since bar gashasim in lam ila v'siba shekatmu lem. Akor tzarich lemer. That's it's not stam a hergish. Means that's what type of nivra was created. It's not stam a hergish. That's a true Indian. It's not stam, the nivra. It's, why is that our basic sense? First of all, the Rebbe says that if we would have been as having from someone which has a makir, then we wouldn't have felt like this. Because if the makir is by definition an extension, we would also felt that we're an extension. That's number one, the Rebbe says. But the Rebbe says more. It says over here, since this state of being that the hergish is only your metzius, that ein lam ilu v'sim v'shikot mulehem, so that's mechriach that this house is from atzmos. This is a beer that Rabbi says in Tanya. Yeah, it's not stam a dimya. The fact that the nivra is marga, say stam a shtus, it's reingeret a shtus. That's the basic hergish metzius. So that's what type of metzius. Why do we feel that? Because that's the ingredient. We don't in our metzius. What I'm saying is, if part of the ingredients of our being was that we're an extension to something, we would have felt it. Why is the basic hergish that there is no makar? Because the only ingredient within the being is his metzius. It's not an extension to earlier. It's not just that we think so. It's not just that what this being is could be traced back. But there's a hell of a hester. It's not the hell of a hester. That's the basic hergish. That's we can have. If it's inside hell of a hester itself, how can you understand otherwise? It's not a word of hell of a hester. Hell of a hester is seichel basagi. You can't verstehen. But the basic hergish you're not going to take away. It's not just if there's a concealment, so it should be the same concealment for seichel. You could say same concealment for hergish. It's not about that. It's concealment. What's contained in the yesh? What's contained in the yesh is only his metzius. Therefore, he can't feel otherwise. What he has is only himself. To have only yourself, the type of being that the only being that you have within is just you, that's only from Atzmos. By him, he's the type of being that the only thing that exists there is him. It's not a result of anything. That's the nature of being that we have. It's not some word of hergish. If it's a hergish, why could you change your understanding? And change your understanding, change your feeling also. It's not about changing your feeling. You can't sense something that doesn't exist within you. You're sensing yourself. You exist. You sense your existence. That existence only contains you, nothing else. That's a true thing. Yeah, same way you say, what exists in wood? Only what the ingredients that exist in wood. So that's something that give you you call it whatever exists in wood. Splinters, whatever wood contains. Things that don't exist in wood don't exist. You're not going to feel them there. Why can't you feel it there? It doesn't exist there. You can only feel something that exists. If the nivra only contains him, you're not going to exist. Well, how could the nivra all contain if this is Dvar Havai? But the Dvar Havai is in a different world. The Dvar Havai is in Elokus. In the Yesh only exists Yesh. Nothing else. So you can't sense more than that. So Shaila, how can you understand Bichlal that there's a makar? If within the world, the only thing that exists in the world is its mitzvahs, how can you understand that there's a makar? If in the world the only thing that you can only understand things that exist, things that don't exist you can't understand. So if in the world it's a yesh, the Alter Rebbe says it. So how can you bechal know of a makar? You understand the shayla? It's a question. How could you bechal understand that there must be a makar to this yesh? If the only thing that's contained in the Elam Hazeh is its mitzias, so how can you understand? You can't understand an idea that doesn't exist. Only ideas that exist you can understand. You don't understand. You don't know what a malach is. You can only understand ideas that exist.
Seichel can understand higher than itself.
No, only ideas that exist in the world of seichel. Things which aren't ideas. Seichel doesn't know about.
Basi says in the Eberste.
That's enough about it. The Rebbe says that there's the higher elements of bria. There's the edelkeit of bria, which there it's nirgash the ayin. But there's an element in the bria which there the ayin is not nirgash. Okay, but that's we're dealing with the mitzvahs and matzvahs. We're dealing with a certain. There's a certain element in the bria. The there's an element of the bria which stem from higher dargas and alagus. Not everything in Elam Hazeh comes from this keich ha'atzmos. The Alter Rebbe says there's one element in Elam Hazeh that comes from keich ha'atzmos. But you have the edelkeit of the bria. I'm saying that's nicht unser Schmuz. You understand? But this verse is not stam hergish. It's not stam your imagination. It's the only thing that exists in the yesh is only his metzias. So how could it be that part of this, every other being, part of the ingredient of the makeup of the being is that it's an extension of something. So to create a being that part of its makeup is not that it's an extension, you have to be something which is fully independent, as the Alter Rebbe says, as the Alter Rebbe statue. Now, what does the Rebbe want to bring out of this? The Rebbe wants to bring out a different point. The Rebbe says, no, this is what the Rebbe wants to bring out of it. The Rebbe brought this to the Chagav. What does the Rebbe want to bring out? Riyas Shemaim, the Poyel Himakem, the Sphere Shemam Luva Shakav Meir Itself. Now, the Rebbe says the Riyas Shemaim Pel is Makel. She'er Kei Amar Musav Atzmus. Vur Beker Sakei Sham. Shekdei Shia Yesh Hazeh. Hanir. So the Rebbe says the Chagav. Shekdei Shia never Hazeh. Beker Chen Sabak Volum Mida. The Slavish in itself Bekelim the Spheres. In order for the Nivra to be a Mugbul, the air that he mistabish in Kelim. The Kelim are Magbul the air. It's good. That's in order for the nivra to be a balgvul, the air had to be mislabish and keil. Good. But what do we see from the Alter Rebbe? But aval etzim inina is havas a nivra. But the etzim kayach to be mahava this nivra, the Alter Rebbe says is me'er insaf, not from atzmus. And this is a pella. The pella is viken zayin. That's the Rebbe means the extent of ermein amar. I have to see the hemshech hasib. But the ultimate extent of ermein amar, that at kedikach the ermein amar, that even the kayach of atzmos is also nimshach through there. That's a pella. Even though what is is gilui? What is gilui? Gilui is a result of mar. So gilui doesn't contain this element in atzmos that he's independent being. That's not where the idea of it doesn't come from there. Is not a result of the fact that he's in Litchila. Is a result of the fact that he's Blikvol. So the Blikvol is Gal and that's Pashtetza. How does Gilui stem from the fact that in Litchila? How does Gilui come from there? The Chulina Gilui does not come from there. And I will say no. Since Me'ein Amar, he's Me'ein the entire Mar. He's Me'ein Atzmos. That means that everything's his Gal. It says that the Eibusha wants certain things. The Eibusha didn't want it to be this Gal. But it's at the gather of the way it is Lamaila, it's not only is Megali Nyana which have to do with Gilu. Lamaila is also Megali Nyana which have nothing to do with Gilu. Which just needs a beer because you can say things just, but we want to give a hezbollah. You want to say there's a musik of Gilu. And there's a musik of Gili ben Amakar. Gili ben Amakar is an idea that makes sense. It's like comes from Amar. But here we're saying that Lamaila is taka true, the mashal is taka real. And there's a relationship of to the Mar. But Alpha became in Lamaila, it's at the end of the Mar, the way it is in its true sense, Lamaila, the is Megala also in Yanim, which are beyond Mar. So you have to understand how that works with the idea of The Rebbe is not going into the beer so much over here. The Rebbe is more saying the fact. That's more in Chassidus. When we say Me'ein Amar, to the extent wants to bring out the result. Since you say it's explained in Chassidus, that the Lamaila is not Stam Megala, the aspect of Mar which exists in Atzmos. It doesn't only reveal the aspect of Bligful, but it also reveals Kaviyachol, what's beyond the Etzim, which is beyond So the Rebbe wants to bring out how that's going to affect that in Al Madregas is not only an Einsaf of Gili. In Al Madregas is an expression of Atzmos. That's what the Rebbe wants to bring out in this mind. The Rebbe's not going into the beer. The beer for this thing, that's an Arichas and Samavav. We'll see, the Rebbe goes into mentions it a little bit. In Sief, in the middle of the end of Sief Hey, we're going to go straight to that point. Now we'll go back to, because this is a behemshech.
I don't understand something. If I asked this in other words before, I just still don't have it clear. If it takes a koyach of kodum to be the ultimate legal.
Yeah, but the fact.
So why?
A real kodum is beyond the idea of legal.
But poil. So that means there's a fake kodum. What's pshat?
Not a fake kodum. The aspect that air reveals, and that air comes from. Where does the Inyan Agili come from? The Inyan Agili comes from the fact that the etzem is bligvul, not the fact that the etzem is independence.
But the only when the only
a kadmin
isn't that
it's true that only a kadmin is Ein Sof. It's true. Only a kadmin. But the idea of Ein Sof doesn't express what the kadmin is. That's not what kadmin is about. Only a kadmin is Ein Sof is true. But a kadmin is beyond the idea of Ein Sof.
That should reveal a prat in kadmin. The fact that you're
not
koyach...
necessarily. Not necessarily. Then I'm saying is only a person can understand. Seichel doesn't capture what a person is. Only a nefesh can understand. That doesn't mean that seichel captures what a nefesh is. Only a kadmin is Ein Sof. Say it. That doesn't mean that the idea that the term Ein Sof captures what a kadmin is. A kadmin is far beyond the idea of Ein Sof. A kadmin is there's no term, there's no definition. All ideas are nischadish. The idea of blikvo is nischadish. The idea of ermein amar is nischadish. Everything was nischadish. These are all ideas. We're not saying exerts sakasa that air comes from mar. The Alter says a beer. Since we see a relation of a gilui to a makar, We explain it. Where did this happen? Because the makar is a mar and he's bleak vol, which that results in a vispashtus. It's an explain. So that inyan doesn't express the fact that the makar is not connected to the idea of bleak vol. That doesn't bring it. That's not brought out over there. I'm saying it. Say a partial example. You have a person that he has the ability to shine. You heard them all from another one. Say this on tapes over here. How do you make a break?
Stop.
Stop and then you restart. There's a way to make pause, no? You press record, right? Press record, make pause, and you start again. No?
Is there a pause button?
It's never push it. You press it.
It's kind of like good work.
But the point that I'm trying to say is, you have someone that shines. He has a tchona that he's mayor, right? And where does the fact come from? The fact that he's mayor, that he's not mugbal, so he can be mayor. Since he's not mugbal, he doesn't have to be locked within himself. He's not mugbal to be only. He's mispash. Then there's the fact that he doesn't need his pashtus. He's beyond his pashtus. Yeah, there's an element in him that the whole idea that this bleak vol of his pashtus, he's beyond that. This bleak vol, which is expressed, which brings the idea of his pashtus, he's beyond that idea. Is that his pashtus also going to bring that up? The earth is not going to express that, but
by this person, it didn't take the beyond his pashtus to give the ability for a pashtus. Whenever something takes a power, but
I'm saying, but even that no. What I'm saying is the kadman is far beyond this idea of bleak vol that's expressed in it. The aspect of kadman is much greater, or is not only greater. It's in a whole different plane than the fact that the kadman is Ein Sof. The fact that the kadman is Ein Sof, that's kleinigkeit. That's not what a kadman is. That's like a side effect. About that kadman is bleak vol. For him, bleak vol means nothing.
But it had to be Megala some element of kadman.
No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. No, why?
Whenever there's the only way for this thing to happen.
So it doesn't
is
have
you don't say something.
If I care, because it's far. If I care, you're being magbal the Eibishter now. The fact that Ein Sof doesn't express them at all. Ein Sof doesn't express them at all.
But isn't the fact if this can't happen without a certain
You're dealing with Gvul. You're saying that this thing doesn't retrace that. I think that's if I care. Since the Eibishter is the ultimate Ein Sof, so therefore he doesn't have to relate to that aspect. Because he's so far, he has that also. Badi he has that. I'm saying he has everything. He doesn't have to relate to that form. If I cared.
The fact that even the Cheshbon in Lamed Aleph, for example, the fact that
Lamed Aleph is different. I don't know what you're saying over there because with this.
No, it's separate for it. The fact that there it says you see the fact that we have a Chreichem from this world that the Kabbalah is there with Chatoinim, so that shows
this Av is here. It's not Chazal. Doesn't do with this.
The moment you're muchach because of something, to say that, for a logical reason, you're muchach to say that this thing has a connection to Atzmos, so that creates a connection. The same part I say, for a logical reason, you have to say this bleak has a connection to Kabbalah.
It doesn't create anything, no, it's not a connection, it's not a derech makar, it's fakert. Because it's Ein Sof, you can't, it's not fakert. Punkt fakert, no. No, it's fakert to zeh. You say that water, since water has no colors, you can have any color. Because it's beyond, so it can have anything. It's undefined. Something's undefined. It doesn't have to be related to that aspect in order to have it. Because it's undefined, you can have anything. It's a different story. It's undefined. Since it's undefined, you can have anything. So in everything that's going to come from it, you're going to see in any color they're going to color water. That's going to be something. Water has no colors.
Because they colored water without being pashto.
I'm saying is that if something's undefined, then that's why it contains everything. In the everything, you're not going to be able to trace back the undefinedness. Because there's nothing to do with it. You're asking a general question.
But things that contain things, and the only way it could contain things, you see in this, the teuchen of this object is a teuchen that could only come about by something that's a kadman.
Verstehe, but a kadman, nicht in dem besteht, what a kadman, no, but nicht in dem besteht, what a kadman is.
So the muhus of a kadman, but some part of kadman has to be expressed there.
Nothing of kadman is expressed.
But how does that make sense?
Why doesn't it make sense?
Because if this is an object that can only be expressed by a kadman, so I should see in this object, I see, you are a product of a kadman.
I know one thing. I know that only a kadman can do this, but the ad kadman is be'ein greater than this.
So I don't need the whole kadman, and I see an element of kadman expressed.
There's no element with the that's only with the Ramukli you can say you have an element of it. But something just bleak, there's no elements. If I cared. No.
I'm just not understanding.
You're asking a general question. I'm saying this general question. You don't understand the musik of something that could come from a bleak vol. That's not how it
Should express some element of the belief.
The way you're understanding that's Hepech what it's saying over here. You're saying that since the only one that's a Kadmon is Blik Vol, so the idea of Blik Vol expresses Kadmon.
Yeah.
I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying Kadmon is nothing to do with the Musik of Blik Vol. Nothing to do with the Musik of Blik Vol. Kadmon has nothing to do with it. The whole idea of Blik Vol is created. Yesh Ma'ayin Mamish. There's no ideas. But the Eibush is unlimited. Savad is Blik Vol also. He's undefined. If he's undefined, he doesn't have to relate to the idea of Blik Vol to contain it. The idea of Blik Vol doesn't express him at all. Doesn't express him at all. Zero. Does he not contain it? Avadi contains it. But this idea doesn't express him at all.
But anything is believable besides a Kaplen.
So what? But the word blikvol doesn't express what a Kaplen is. It's a side effect. Only a person could walk. So what?
So I see a thing walking. I have to know it's from a person.
You don't know that it's a person, but his humanity is not expressed in that.
I'm saying it's a technical verb.
Only him, yeah. That doesn't express him. The fact that he contains that doesn't express him. That's the word of arable vat. If the makir contains it, only a bleak vol could have. That's it. But nicht in dem besteht what a bleak vol is. Not only nicht in dem besteht. He's becham. Only the Eibush could create a world. The Alter says the fact that create a world doesn't express him at all. It's a tzimtzum for him. It's a shpala. Only he could create. It's true. Only he could create. But the fact that he creates means nothing to him.
Isn't that difference between meaning and expression?
Meaning, only the Eibusher could create a world. But in the fact that he creates a world doesn't express what the Eibusher is. Only he could, no one else could create. But in the idea of creation does not express what the Eibusher is at all. It's a side effect. The Eibusher could create, Avadi is really create. It doesn't express him, the fact that he could create.
So just like in a very general sense there, specifically the Musik of Kaplen here.
How do you understand that? It says also this, the fact that Eibush create is Ketibah Miyamikan, all the Alter Rebbe's Biyurim, that's Ketibah Ka'is Achas from the all these Biyurim, there's Ben Arech. But only he could do it. So what that only he could do it? But it doesn't express him. Only he could do it, it's true. That doesn't mean that it expresses
There
him.
it's expressing some idea of the Eibush there. Here
It doesn't express any idea. The Alter Rebbe says no, the Bria doesn't express any idea of the Eibush there. Zero.
in the world of Mamale.
The Alter Rebbe says no. The Bria Seshmai does not express anything of the Eibush there. Only he could do it. What does that do? That only he could do it. So what? Doesn't express him at all. He's undefined, he can do many things, but it doesn't express him. His mile is not expressed in this. He's the only one that can do it. That doesn't mean that this aspect expresses him. Doesn't express. The fact that only you could do something doesn't mean that in this action you're expressed. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying the fact that this action results from you. I can say, but if this action has no relation with me, how could I include it? Because you're blikvos, you can include anything. That's a different idea. This action has, if you're going to value the action with you, there's no comparison at all. There's no erech. Only you can do it, that doesn't mean anything. Only you can do it. So what? Only you can do it. No one else can do it, only you. But this action doesn't express you at all. That's Yesh Ma'ayin Mamish. Since he's undefined, so he could contain things that don't have any relation to him. That's a different story. But he's not mugbal. The fact that Eibush is blikvos doesn't mean, so he can't create, he could create. This, what the Rebbe wants to get to is, this is all the Rebbe explained. What's the pshat in Alter Rebbe in Tanya? The Alter Rebbe says that the niver is yesh ma'ayin. The Rebbe is going to be masber now. That this brings out the ultimate of Ermei Namar. Okay, we'll see next week. We'll finish the scene. And Sivdal, the next, I'm saying we're going to finish the Nekudas HaMamer before we'll do this week the main chunk of the Mamer. So not every part is so iyomdik.